Okay, picture this. It's the final ticking moments of 1999. The clock is inching closer and closer to midnight, but instead of pure, unadulterated celebration, there is this very real, palpable sense of dread sweeping across the globe. People are literally stockpiling bottled water and survival kits. They're genuinely terrified that airplanes are just going to fall out of the sky, elevators will plummet, and hospital monitors will just flatline. Humanity suddenly felt caught right between two worlds, right? The familiar rusted gears of the analog industrial age and the terrifying glowing unknown of the digital age. We were terrified that a simple computer glitch, the Y2K bug, would bring our entire society crashing down. It was an era of profound, intense technological paranoia.
And right at that exact peak of anxiety, a movie hit theaters that fundamentally altered pop culture forever. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are going to be digging into the source code of a true cultural phenomenon. Our thesis today is that The Matrix wasn't just a wildly successful action film with mind-blowing special effects. No, it was actually a perfectly timed synthesis of 20th century anxieties that, looking back now, seemingly predicted our modern reality. In a lot of ways, it wasn't just science fiction, it was a documentary of the future.
All right, let's load up the training modules and dive into this. We'll be covering 1. Capturing the 1999 zeitgeist. 2. Cyberpunk and anime DNA. 3. Rebellion and hyperreality. 4. Building the Matrix. And 5. Our modern simulation.
Starting things off with Part 1, Capturing the 1999 Zeitgeist.
So for decades, we were all promised this bright, shiny, Jetson-style future. Technology was supposed to equal pure convenience, space exploration, and a united Earth with these bright, clear blue skies. But by 1999, that utopian vision was rapidly fading into a much darker reality. Humanity was waking up to the rather terrifying fact that cold, unfeeling computer systems sitting in dark, neon-lit server rooms were quietly running everything. Our banks, our power plants, our government records, the whole shebang. The looming threat of that Y2K crash completely shattered the illusion of a technological utopia.
Moving right along to Section 2, Cyberpunk and anime DNA. What's really fascinating here is how sci-fi was mutating during this time. Back in the early 80s, films like Blade Runner turned our gaze away from exploring the stars and forced us to look inward at grim, polluted megacities filled with rogue AI. Then we got novels like Neuromancer and heavily influential Japanese anime like Akira and Ghost in the Shell. These animated epics proved the medium could tackle incredibly mature, deeply philosophical questions about artificial consciousness, human evolution, and what happens when technological greed goes unchecked. The Matrix completely absorbed all of this DNA.
To really grasp this, we have to talk about cyberpunk. It is a genre that couples high-tech advancements with low-life societal decay. Think of it as this incredible visual and thematic mashup. You've got the rusted analog grit of a steampunk lowlife perfectly blended with the sleek neon glow of cyberpunk anime. It was literature's very first grounded response to the information age. William Gibson's 1984 novel Neuromancer really put this on the map. Instead of exploring distant galaxies, his characters navigated a high-tech society absolutely riddled with corruption, fighting against AI that basically used humans as pawns. I mean, it's essentially the exact blueprint for the world Neo wakes up in.
And Gibson gave us two massive, game-changing concepts, the Matrix and cyberspace. He dreamed up this virtual landscape where users could literally jack in, way before the modern internet even existed, which is wild when you think about it. The real internet started as ARPANET, a decentralized packet-sharing network built by the US military in the 60s just to ensure communications would survive a nuclear attack. From those dark, paranoid Cold War origins, the web grew incredibly fast. It mutated into the consumer internet of the 90s, expanding, accelerating, and ultimately catching up to the exact cyberspace that sci-fi writers had dreamed up a decade earlier.
Okay, on to Section 3, Rebellion and hyperreality. Now, the cultural landscape of the 90s was totally split, schizophrenic almost. On one hand, you had these highly manufactured boy bands and pop celebrities, groups meticulously constructed from the top down by executives to simulate absolute perfection. On the other hand, you had the raw, aggressive, truth-seeking catharsis of grunge and industrial rock. You know, bands like Nirvana, Nine Inch Nails, and Rage Against the Machine. They were directly questioning the system and sparking massive cultural dialogue. This resentful, politically aware underground music didn't just give The Matrix its awesome soundtrack, it gave the film its rebellious soul.
And this clash between the manufactured and the real brings us to postmodern philosophy. Specifically, Jean Baudrillard's concept of hyperreality. Think about a model on a magazine cover or an influencer on social media today. They are a real person, sure, but by the time that image reaches your eyes, it's been altered, filtered, and color-corrected so many times that the perfection you are looking at literally doesn't exist in the real world. Yet our brains just consume it and accept it as a baseline standard. You are operating within a simulation. The Matrix took this highly dense academic philosophy and miraculously turned it into an explosive blockbuster narrative.
Which brings us to Section 4, Building the Matrix.
The Wachowskis were college dropouts working construction in Chicago, but they were absolutely voracious consumers of pop culture, comic books, anime, and philosophy. They started out writing comics, but after a Hollywood studio took their script for the movie Assassins and completely mangled their vision, they realized they had to direct if they wanted to protect their ideas. So what do? They shoot a low-budget, critically acclaimed thriller called Bound, just to prove to the studios that they actually had the chops. Then they walked in and dropped these massive, gorgeous storyboards onto the studio's desk, storyboards that were completely dripping with steampunk grit and cyberpunk anime style, and the rest is cinematic history.
They achieved a totally brilliant synthesis here. They essentially took disparate, almost niche cultural elements and engineered them into a perfect machine. They took the visual aesthetics of cyberpunk and Japanese anime, layered it with the anti-establishment attitude of 90s industrial music, baked in French postmodern philosophy, and then delivered the whole package through the most digestible, familiar framework imaginable, the classic hero's journey. It was, without a doubt, an absolute masterclass in filmmaking.
And finally, Section 5, our modern simulation.
Here is the truly crazy part. The real takeaway. The world we live in today features nearly all the dystopian warnings this film laid out. Big tech monopolies rival and sometimes exceed the power of actual governments. We are constantly surrounded by aggressive algorithms harvesting our deepest secrets just to manipulate what we buy and how we vote. We're facing the very real, very immediate horizons of unchecked artificial intelligence. It's not fun science fiction anymore, it is literally the daily news.
In the film, the big horrific twist is that the machines are harvesting human bodies for energy, right? Today, the parallel is uncanny, even if it's slightly less messy. Big tech companies and social media platforms are constantly harvesting our attention, our behavior, and our personal data for massive, massive profit. Somewhere along the line, you have become the product. The machines don't need your body heat, they just need your constant scrolling engagement.
And because of this, nearly all of us are now managing a totally fragmented existence. We are literally split in two. We have our base reality self, the physical person sitting in a chair, breathing the air, and then we have our highly curated, heavily filtered, hyper-real social media simulation. And we interact within that digital world as if it's the ultimate truth, exactly as Baudrillard predicted all those decades ago.
Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder. The Matrix wasn't just a cool movie about a hacker learning kung fu. It was a mirror held up to society, pointing in the exact direction we were heading. So, looking at your own daily digital life, the algorithms you feed, the screens you stare at, the digital persona you curate so carefully, are you truly operating with free will and base reality? Or have you already, without even realizing it, surrendered to the hyper-real simulation? Honestly, it's something to think about the very next time you unlock your phone. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep questioning the reality around you.